Yeah, sure. You want to start, Omid?
Sure. So thanks everyone. This is amazing to see so many participants are attending. My name is Omid Saberi. I'm the technical lead for the EDGE program based in Washington, D.C. I have my colleague here, Irene Monserrate. She's also based in D.C. She's our technical consultant and technical lead on the EDGE program as well, based in DC. So glad to have everyone. We also have Michelle Farrell. She's our colleague on marketing and business development. She's with us as well today. So with this introduction, first of all, I wanted to, before we get started with the session, I wanted to have a warm welcome to everyone. The EDGE Experts and the EDGE program has been growing rapidly globally, and we are seeing a lot of interest from the clients. I was traveling last week to the Philippines, and I met with so many clients that they want to use EDGE for version 3. There's a lot of interest from shopping malls, from office buildings, from low-income housing, different types of clients. They want to use EDGE for the certification as well as for their financing needs as well. So there's a lot of interest. The other thing that I'm hearing from the marketplace, which is interesting, is that in the market, they are saying that we don't have enough EDGE experts. So having EDGE experts is great, and there are opportunities for yourselves to be able to engage in the marketplace with different client types. So with that introduction, Irene, if you want to say a few words of introduce yourself, and then we go to the slides.
Sure, thank you, Omid. Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending this EDGE Experts Café. As Omid mentioned, I am also based in Washington, D.C., and I am a technical specialist, so I support the technical side of the EDGE program. Many of you know me because we have been exchanging communications when you have issues with the EDGE app. Most probably I'm the one that is dealing with them. We are going to start, but just as a reminder, we are recording this session. So for those that could not attend or cannot finish the session, we will share the link later on. And also, please fill in the survey that you will receive at the end of this this presentation. Your feedback is very important for us. I'm going to start sharing the presentation now. Can you see?
Yes.
Okay.
So let's go to the next slide, please. Perfect. So, this is our agenda for today. We have been looking at, having these type of sessions with our EDGE experts. We have been having local EDGE expert cafes, but also this is one of our global EDGE experts cafes, and we want to give you a quick update on where we are with EDGE. And then we talk about EDGE version 3 project updates and give you some examples of successful EDGE projects in version 3. And at the end, we leave some time to go through the Q&A and answer any questions that you may have. One point that I want to, before we get started with the with explaining where we are with EDGE, I want to just tell you that obviously moving to version 3 has been one of the biggest transitions in EDGE history. But before this transition, the core for EDGE has been for us to deliver value to the end users. And the end users are people that they live in these houses, or people that they own these office buildings or the retail projects. Our goal is to make sure that they save energy, and the energy saving will translate to the cost saving for them. We have been looking at increasing the stringency of our standard. We want to make sure that every few years, every 3 to 5 years, we improve our standards to make sure that the savings will be increased. This may feel, in some cases, this may feel a bit difficult for the clients to adopt to. I remember when we started Edge, the same kind of conversations and questions that we are facing now, we had in 2015, 2014, clients saying that this is, there are difficulties, we don't find the products or things are not that easy to meet the standard. But as you saw, like version 2 became kind of a standard for everyone that used to follow. And now with the shift to version 3, there is a bit of difficulty with the clients to adopt and with our Edge experts to adopt to version 3. And we are hearing questions from yourselves saying that, oh, I can't, my project doesn't meet Edge version 3. I can't make my project past version 3, and all of these questions. And we wanted to share with you some of our experiences by talking or going through the projects in different countries to understand where the pain points are and how we can help you in this session. So that's the background of the session. Where we are with the Edge right now, to date, we have certified projects in more than 70 countries. And there are projects that are being certified, and Edge has been used in more than 100 countries. We have projects that are registered in more than 100 countries and certified in more than 70 countries. So it is becoming a program that quite well adopted globally. The other thing about version 3 is that we also enabled developed countries. So we have projects that are coming up in developed countries as well as developing countries. So we have interest from clients in developed countries to certify their projects. We had 37 million square meters of projects certified, and the number of projects are increasing. In terms of comparison between version 2 and version 3, this is our data as of yesterday. So you can understand where we are in terms of number of projects in version 2 and version 3. In version 2, we have around 55,000 projects created. We have around 118 expressed interest for a certification. Around 4,000 projects are registered and under reviewed, and 5,000 projects are certified. So all in all, we have around 9,000 projects in version 2 under certification and certified. In version 3, we have around 9,000 projects created, 120 expressed interest, 154 in registration under review, and 21 projects already certified. So projects are getting certified in version 3 as we speak, and there's a lot of new projects being created in version 3. So here we want to talk about some of these common mistakes or misconceptions in version 3. I think these are very important for us to communicate and be clear about, because Edge experts are our eyes and ears on the ground. You are the front line with the clients, and it's very important for you to be equipped with these kind of knowledge and information that when you talk to the clients, you can convey these messages to the client. So Irene, passing the ball to you if you want to start from here.
Thank you, Amit. So as Amit mentioned, it is very important for us to discuss or to let you know about the main problems that we have seen and we have heard from you as well, and the misconceptions also that we have seen or heard. So then this is the first one is something we hear very often. Someone or an owner creates a project in version 2, and then he comes and says it doesn't pass in version 3. So it is very important that we look at the project with a fresh point of view. So what we are trying to convey here is, if you created a project in version 2, don't copy paste in version 3 using exactly the same strategies. As many of you know, Edge version 3 baseline is stricter in some areas, and therefore the distribution or the weight of the end uses or energy use is different. And also version 3 has several new efficiency measures that projects can explore. So please, we encourage you every time you create a project from version 3, just erase what you used to do in version 2 and start with a new point of view. Also, it is very important to look at the bars on the right side of the tabs, like we show in the figures here. So you can focus on the predominant resource use to have the largest impact. So for example, if you are working on a residential project, probably you want to explore options that reduce hot water demand. But if you are working on an office project, maybe you want to explore reducing cooling or lighting. As you know, these numbers are going to be customized depending on the location, the size, and the type of the building. So these are just some examples, but it is very important that you first look at this base case and see where you can take the most advantage. I'm going to move to the next one.
Irene, I'm sorry, can I explain something on the previous one?
Sure.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So here I wanted to make sure we discuss this point very clearly, because this is something that I've seen happening over and over. And this is a very small trick that if we explain the trick to you, you would probably get it and you can act on it quite easily. Irene mentioned looking at the graphs, right? I want to emphasize on this. So I give you one example. We had a client, for example, that they used version 2 before. And on the left, if you look at the graph with different colors, right? The yellow part is very small. And the yellow part is where the lighting, right? In version 2, the lighting load was high. So they used to click the efficient lighting and get a lot of saving. And, they were very happy that they get that saving. They come to version 3 and they don't look at the graph, that the graph now has very little lighting load. So then they go and click the lighting, efficient lighting, and they see that in version 2, for example, they got 5% saving. Here they are getting 0.01% saving. And then they suddenly get upset saying that, oh, what's happening? There's something wrong with version 3. That's the example Irene was talking about, that we should not compare. Before doing that, what you need to do is look at the graph and see what is the main energy usage in that specific building and that specific condition. And based on that, tackle the large energy chunks. So for example, on the left graph, if you do anything for lighting, you will not save more than 1% or 0.5%. But the orange part, which is, I think the orange part is the hot water. If you're looking at doing something for your hot water, suddenly you will get 10%, 15% saving, because hot water is the biggest chunk. On the right-hand side, the biggest chunk is the heating energy. So you want to do something to reduce the heating energy, maybe insulate the building, maybe. And again, it's interesting that in this type of, on the right-hand side, some of the clients, they go and add shading. Adding shading to a building that has too much heating energy will increase the heating energy, and they will get negative savings. So you need to look at where the energy distribution is and then tackle things as required. Do not just blindly follow what you used to do in version 2 in version 3. That's very important to remember. And we have seen this mistake has happening over and over with different projects. Irene, over to you.
Thank you, Amit. Okay. So the next point, wrong design tab inputs have very important impacts. So for example, Edge is going to use the roof area to calculate heat gain in the building. So you need to double check that the area that you have input in the design tab is correct. I have seen many times they get some users get mixed with the area of different floors, but we are talking about the exposed roof. So this is important because if you overestimate this area, then Edge is going to calculate more heat gain or cooling load or heating load, depending on the location. I know there is a big confusion for people that used to do a lot of residential projects in version 2, where they used to mention only the roof area of a specific apartment or just sub-projects of apartments. Now in version 3, that we have the multiple typologies table, the roof area that you report is the total building area. So we are trying to make it less confusing. So it is the total building area, the total roof area of the building. Also, please pay attention to exterior lighting and irrigation area, and question if the edge default area is applicable to your project. So I'll just give you an example. Many users just leave the default area at the beginning. Probably you don't know, at the beginning of a project, you may not know this information, but just look at this area and think if it makes sense. Because, for example, if you are working on a homes project and you have 2 home units, there is a default lighting area, and if later on you move to 1 unit, Edge is not going to adjust that lighting area or irrigation area. So then it's going to your results are going to be affected because you are overestimating lighting demand or irrigation demand. So pay attention to those areas. Also, it is very important to look at the orientation details. I have seen in many projects that they leave the default values, which is fine, but just remember that the default assigns values to 8 orientations. So if later on you decide to make a square building or rectangular building, you need to put 0 in the orientations that you are not, your building doesn't have a perimeter. If you leave it as default, but you only change 4 orientations, again, the floor area will be exaggerated. Edge is going to overestimate the cooling and heating demands. So it is important that you look at these particular parameters. Regarding hot water systems, there are some regions where housing projects don't install these systems, hot water systems. They deliver the home unit or the apartment without these systems. And we would like to encourage the Edge users to suggest developers to include these systems in the home and apartment buildings because they make a big difference. And if the developer doesn't include them, then you cannot take advantage of reporting a more efficient system. So we just want to encourage you to talk to the developers and explain that these systems, especially for home and apartments, they make a huge difference. Also, PV panels, they are becoming cheaper and cheaper, right? So they are very often a viable option, but we have this conception or this idea that they are super expensive. And we just wanted to give you an example of what we have seen around the world because they are becoming more cheaper and they obviously have a lot of benefits. So this is just an example. In many regions, just to power a house, you need 2 panels, and this will cost approximately $400. So don't just discard this option in your projects because, as I mentioned, there is a lot of benefits. Similarly, adding insulation. I'm sorry, I missed one. Cost of utilities and cost of construction, just make sure that this number is correct in order to have a more accurate utility savings and added cost for those projects that this information is relevant. You just need to make sure that the information is correct. So as I was saying, adding insulation has a huge impact in many projects. So while in some regions, adding insulation is not even considered, in other regions such as South Africa or the Middle East, it is very common. For example, in South Africa, putting insulation on the roof is pretty much standard. In the Middle East, insulating your facade and roof is a normal business as usual. We are also seeing projects in India and Mexico that are starting to use AAC blocks that have very good thermal properties. So we always encourage to consider these passive measures because they have a huge impact, not only in reducing the energy consumption and obviously bills, but also in adding thermal comfort to the user. As Amit mentioned at the beginning, this is something that is extremely important for us, the benefits that the end user has. Similarly, while heat pumps are very common in South Africa, for example, there are other regions that have this misconception that these systems are very complex and expensive, but we have examples of how they have been applied successfully, and yeah, they are not as difficult. Residential projects benefit largely from low flow showers, and the market shows that they have the added cost is not very high. So also we want to encourage you to really look into the best the best you can do to reduce that flow. For as I have been mentioning, hot water demand is very important for residential projects, and obviously spending less water in shower will save you a lot in energy as well. So this is a measure that has to be explored in detail if you are working on a residential project. So it is very important to manage your client's expectation. Each will have an extra cost. The added cost is between 3 to 5% is what we have seen of the total construction cost. So it is, as I mentioned, it's very, very important that you talk to your client and they understand that there will be an added cost. So this is an example that we wanted to mention. If you are working on a low income house that costs $50,000, the incremental cost will be around $2,500, which will cover the solar PV panels, solar hot water, LEDs, and low water fixtures, and these measures will get you to Edge or Edge Advanced. So it's important that you convey this message to the client.
Yeah, maybe Irene, I'll explain a little bit more on the cost element so that everyone is clear. There is this misconception again that they feel, there's a feeling that clients, they can meet Edge standard with no cost, no additional cost. Obviously, if you design a building from early days, you can look at what you can do to reduce some of the extra costs that are not needed. For example, in a commercial building, for example, you may have oversized chillers, or you may have oversized systems that are not required. And when you design more efficient building, the size of the systems can be small and make your building more efficient. However, if you are not having that efficiency elements in your building, there would be extra costs for installations of new equipment, like the water equipment, the more efficient systems, LED lights, low flow fixtures. And there needs to be a clear communication when you are talking to any client, existing or new client. First thing first, to say there is an extra cost for meeting Edge certification, and that would be roughly 3 to 5%, depending on the building type, right? So, for example, if you're building a social housing that is $50,000, there's $2,500 per housing unit extra cost. And a lot of clients in many countries, depending on the regions, for example, we have in Colombia, in Peru, we have incentives for builders, for construction companies, also incentives for the buyers through the banks or through the government programs. And sometimes the incentives easily cover this cost. So when you hear complaints from the developers, if the expectation is not met at the start, then they get upset, right? We had one of our clients, IFC clients, that we wanted to discuss with them about edge certification. They had around 50 buildings. And there was a communication at some point that we miscommunicated the costs of certification. Because we miscommunicated with lower costs, the client was so upset because they were like, oh, you said that, but now the cost is higher and everything else. So it's always important to manage your expectations early with giving the right prices. And then if the cost is lower down the line, then the client would be happy. But if you go to the client and say, oh, this is so easy, you can meet it without any cost, then if tomorrow you say you need to buy a shower head that is $8, they would say, no, I don't want to buy because this is too expensive, right? So set the bar right at the start and make sure that that point is communicated clearly to the client so that there is no surprises down the line for the client. I love all the messages that are coming from different cities and countries. Thank you. Keep sending those notes on the chat. Back to you, Irene.
Thank you, Amit. Okay, so room materials. So there are some materials solutions that we have seen clients or users have many questions. So firstly, we encourage you to propose better materials from the beginning, not when it's too late and the project is already almost in construction. So some examples are filler slab. Filler slab is a construction technique where part of the concrete in the bottom of the slab is replaced by a filler material. So it is not that expensive and has a lot of benefits on the embodied carbon. Other options are low carbon cement that are more and more available in the market, and the price is also decreasing. Also, this is something that we haven't mentioned in the Edge user, but not a lot of users are aware of this. So to inform the materials tab, you don't have to include the structural elements such as beam thickness, or if you are working in an industrial facility and you require for special equipment big thickness of the floor, you can reduce the structural, you can remove the structural part from the materials tab, or the thickness that you are informing in the materials tab. This is because we don't want to compromise the structural integrity of the project. We don't want to encourage you to reduce this if it's needed for safety reasons. And this is why, as I mentioned, we are asking you to inform the construction elements, excluding structural elements. So this is just an example. In this picture, you can see the beam thickness is much thicker than the actual slab. So what you report on Edge will be the thickness of the slab. So you remember, you can always raise special ruling request, SRR, if you believe that your project has more savings than what Edge is calculating, or you feel that we are not capturing the real efficiency of the project. You can always contact us, and we can see if a special ruling request can be applied, and you can, we can work with you to report this savings. And lastly, we have been hearing and we understand the frustration of the Edge users with several updates that are happening. And then when the users come back to their project, they see that the savings have changed. Sometimes they see large savings. I have a screenshot here. For example, water went from 27 to 18. So obviously the Edge user was very frustrated and concerned. And I just want to let you know that we hear you, we understand, and we are working on solving this problem. And for now, we will honor the savings on the projects that are registered with version 3. So if you had, like this example, if you had 27% savings and then it changed to 18 for one update, if the project is registered, we will honor the 27% savings. So we just want to give you some peace of mind and let you know that we are currently working on a solution and expecting these issues to not happen and not to be so we are working on the solution for your projects not to be affected anymore. I just wanted to expand on this issue because I have seen this error a lot and I think it's worth digging in. This is for the wall value calculator. This error can have a lot of, if the user doesn't understand how to use this calculator, can have a large impact. So just wanted to explain quickly. If a user inputs only partial wall areas, like this example that I'm putting only 50% north facade and 30% east of the wall type 1, and then you see, so the U value, let's say it's just solid brick and the U value is 2.25. But then you see, you click calculate and you see the overall U value is 0.63. And I have seen projects that don't look at this or don't question why is my overall U value lower than the actual 2.25. So the reason is because you need to look at the U value summary at the bottom, this tab. So when the user is not informing the 100% of the facade, Edge needs to assign a U value. So that's why we have the cell remaining wall area that has the remaining wall area that wasn't informed, and Edge will assign a default U value, which in this case is going to be a more efficient one. And this is why the overall U value is being decreased. So you need to look at this. Sorry, one second. One second. Sorry, I have my son here. So you need to look at this table summary to understand what's happening. And it is very important that you inform 100% of the area. Now, in the next update, you should see this table summary at the top, and it's going to be open, so you can easily see it before you start informing the different wall types that you have. But I thought it was worth just mentioning this. I'm going to go very, very quickly on some projects that are have achieved certification successfully. I want to leave a lot of time for questions, so I'm just going to go very fast. This is a certified project office in Mexico, Monterrey, which is hot and cold. So hot in summer, cold and winter. They benefit because it's an office that is already, it's a partial in a building. So it's a partial building project. So they have intermediate, they are in intermediate floors. So they benefit from low insulation on the, like they can claim low insulation on the roof and floor because there is no heat exchange. However, for the wall areas, they have AAC blocks. As I mentioned before, these blocks have a much higher thermal property than normal concrete. So they have a pretty decent U value that is helping them a lot. And also they have a very efficient air-cooled chillers with a COP of 4, and they also went for lighting efficiency. So this helped the project achieve the certification. Another project, apartments in Ecuador. So they added roof insulation, and they also have a green roof, and they have some insulation on the wall, achieving very good U values. And they also included a heat pump with a very good COP. So they are almost at 40%. They are 36% energy savings. And finally, another example of a project that is already certified is mixed use in Ghana, which is hot and humid weather. They also added insulation on the roof, and on the wall, they didn't add insulation, but they have a thick block, so which helped reduce the U value. They have a very efficient VRF system for cooling, and they also went for lighting efficiency, and so they achieved 20% energy savings. These are the examples that we wanted to show you how what were the efficiency measures that some projects successfully applied. And so if you have tried these options and still cannot, or you have tried to solve the problems that we have explained before and still cannot pass, please reach out to us. This is our email address, h@ifc.org, and we will try to guide you and support to see how we can make your project pass. I'm gonna move to questions, Omid, unless you want to mention something else. I guess.
No, I think this is good. We can open the floor for questions and answers. There are some questions already coming in, so we can go through those questions.
Michelle.
Okay, yep, so I can read through some of the questions here. So does the carbon calculation include embodied energy and materials?
Let me answer this. At this point in version 3, we do not have embodied energy of embodied carbon of materials included. We have completed the study for embodied carbon for materials, and we are working to build that into version 3. The way that we will have the data for version 3, it will be having the embodied carbon of materials as a separate element. So we will still keep the embodied energy in place, but we will add embodied carbon. For projects that they want to do whole life cycle zero carbon process, so they can use embodied operational carbon as well as embodied materials carbon.
Okay, great. And then we have a couple questions around natural ventilation with the difference between version 3 and version 2.0. So why does the calculator in version 3 have only one criteria, which is the percentage windows opening area, versus the previous one, which was the depth and ceiling area and the minimum windows opening area?
I can take that one, Michelle. So the methodology is still the same. However, we are trying in version 3, we try to simplify it for users. So Edge is already taking the height of the room based on what you inform in design stage. So all those parameters, you don't have to inform them anymore. Edge is already calculating them based on what you have informed in the window to wall ratio also measure and in the design tab.
And then why is the calculator's shading coefficient different from the table AASF in the user guides? I guess maybe there's a difference there.
I believe the only difference, and we need to fix this, is the wording. In version 3 in the calculator, we are talking about fin distance and overhang distance, and it's not mentioned in the guideline, and we need to fix this. The way the calculator works or the back end calculations are the same. It's just the wording is creating some questions, and we need to match the wording in the user guide.
There's another question here on materials. Someone is saying from Italy, they did a test and certified a building with version 2, and the materials were 29%, and they did the same test with Edge version 3.0 with an identical store, but the materials were 17%. So maybe you could go on to what the difference would be between those two.
Maybe I can take this question. So this is exactly when we mentioned one of the common conditions is that you use the same assumptions between version 2 and version 3. Version 3 has changed the baseline, and the baseline became more stringent. So if you are using the store that you designed before, with version 3, you need to relook at the design options and see what you need to do to get to the 20%. So the efficiency conditions has changed. One of the changes is on the thickness. There's just changes in the type of materials in the baseline in version 2 and version 3. So those are the changes that causes difference in the savings. And again, if you have a specific project that you want us to discuss, we would be happy to set up a call and go through your project in more detail. Happy to do that.
And here's a question we've got a couple of times. There's a lot of energy used when cooking, but the certification does not have a strategy to reduce this energy use. So how would you reduce or combat the energy consumption from cooking?
I can respond this one. It's a question that we get a lot. So remember that what we are trying with EDGE is to reflect the actual operation of the project. So we understand that there is no efficiency measures for cooking, but we need to reflect the actual energy use that the energy that the user will be consuming. However, in the design tab, we have the kitchen inputs, the cooking and kitchen inputs in the calculator, where you can adjust our assumptions. So the default assumption is that people cook 3 meals a day. So if the operation of your building is going to be different, I'll give you an example. In my house, we only have 1 hot meal a day. So breakfast is cold, lunch is outside. So you can modify this as per the actual usage of the building or how the region, every region is different, right? So you can modify this. As evidence, the only thing you need to provide is a justification, a written justification, as I explained. And we are working on making this more transparent, because I understand there is certain cooking energy and the user doesn't know what if this is going to reflect the kilowatt. This is actually reflecting what the cooking energy they use. So we are working on making this easier and more transparent so the user understands what to do on that side. But adjusting that template will reduce the cooking load if required.
Okay. And there's another question on hot water savings through low flow faucets. Is that possible?
Yes, if I understood the question. So when you are reducing the water consumption from the toilet faucets or the showers, definitely your energy is going to be impacted, because EDGE is going to assume less load for heating the water. So
okay,
even
so here's, oh,
yes.
sorry.
No, sorry. So even if the efficiency measure under energy tab for hot water systems is not selected, if the user reduces the water load and that water has hot water, because in the water tab you have the option of selecting if the shower has hot water provision or not. So if you have hot water provision, it will definitely be impacted if you would reduce the water usage. Thank you, Michelle.
Great. So we have another question on the U value. How is it calculated for EEM06 strategy?
Just 1 second. I don't remember what's the 6th one. Is it wall U value?
06, the U value calculated.
Yeah, I just don't know if it's the roof or the wall. I think it's 5. Sorry, guys. I don't know the numbers by heart. Just 1 second. If you want, Michelle, we can move to the next question and I'll come back to that one.
All right, I'm just looking through some of these. Regarding the new measures for retail in version 3. So energy measure 27, this is a mandatory measure. If the retail does not have a cold storage, but only a cooling chamber, is it necessary to provide all the U values requested in the calculator?
No. No, and it should not be mandatory.
Okay.
I'll take a note of that.
All right, great.
So it is only mandatory when the system has a cool storage. But if there is no cold storage, and it's the same, for example, air conditioning is a mandatory input, but if the building does not have air conditioning, then obviously that is not required, right?
Yeah, but I believe the issue is if they don't put the information, I mean, probably they cannot apply for certification. There is an error. But if this happens, they can select the same value as the baseline, similar with cooling.
That's right, yes. And the six is raised floor or floor insulation. So if you want to respond to that, Irene.
Sure, we don't have a calculator for this because the way we are also working on adding the calculator is different. The calculator for the U value of the floor is different because it's not exposed to the air. So there is less heat transfer with the ground than with the air. So we are currently working on putting this calculator. If you're building, if you don't know what's the U value and you don't have insulation, just select, for the time being, select the same value as the baseline.
Okay, great. Thank you, Irene. So there's a couple other questions on the building dimensions and dealing with several apartment buildings, for example, and how would they actually do this? So are they adding the total distance in meters for each orientation of each building and then putting the total length of all buildings in that orientation? How do they handle multiple buildings and then the distance that's indicated on each of the facades?
Sure. Omid, please, if I say something or miss something, please add. But so each project depends on your project, but each building should be modeled separately, right? If you have separate buildings, you should, let's say you have 5 buildings in a complex, you should build one model for the 5. So the orientation, the building dimensions will be for one full building.
Okay,
if your buildings are exactly the same, please let me know if I'm mistaken. If the buildings are exactly the same and you are going to model only one, then it has to be the worst case scenario in terms of orientation. So the one that gives you less savings when you play with your orientation.
Okay,
yes, and just to add to that is if you have like a situation where you have multiple facades and you have buildings that are, let's say if you have a large building and a small building that we said model them together because the small building is smaller and doesn't grant to have 2 different models, then add all the north facades together, south facades together, east and west. So you just measure all the north facades, for example, and put them as north facades. You can do that as well.
Okay, so there is a question on, in the version 3 manual, we do not specify where we should include industrial as a building type. So which building type should they use if doing an industrial building?
We do have light industry as a typology in the Edge app. This is for warehouses or light industry projects. I don't know if that's.
Yep, that answers the question. Right, let me go to some of the other ones. The structures, so I think you went into this before, but just to clarify, the structures should be removed from what measures of the category of materials. So I guess they're talking about the depth of the materials. Should you remove the structures?
Yeah, from the thickness. So it depends if you have a structural wall that is thicker than the other walls, interior walls, then you remove it from that measure. If you have the beams on the intermediate floors, you remove it from there. So whatever is applicable.
Okay, great. And then should the rebar amount in the beams be included or not?
I will say the answer is no. Omid, do you have more details on that specific one?
Sure, I can explain. Yes, so the rebar has been causing a lot of issues in version 2. We had, if for the edge experts that are with us for a longer time, if you remember in version 1, edge version 1, we didn't have rebars. In version 2, we added rebars. But that caused a lot of issues with auditing, with calculations, and with different problems. in terms of reporting. A lot of clients were reporting it wrongly. So we decided to remove rebar and include it as part of the structure itself. So you do not need to enter the rebar in version 3. We have removed it.
Okay, great. And then we have a few questions on common areas. So I'll select one of these from the general questions that we're getting. So if you have a residential project with different sub-projects, if the exterior lighting area, irrigation area, swimming pool, and other areas are common between them, should the area inserted in each sub-project be the total area or make a weighted distribution?
No, well, the area for the exterior areas should not be included in the multiples typology table. The multiples typology table already asks for a specific covered garage, which is indoor area, and balcony. But exterior, like for common facilities that have exterior lighting and irrigation, that doesn't have to be included in each apartment. It's just outside the table. And that means that outside the multiple typologies table, so it means that it's for the whole building.
Great. And then this is a question about a warehouse for frozen products. So they're using a special type of insulation, which is not the PUR polyurethane. And the question here is that it shows an embedded energy 60% lower than the PUR registered in EDGE. So in the case that they're using this material, can they apply for a special ruling request?
Yes, of course, they can send us an email to the email address that I provided with the technical specifications of this insulation, and we will give them the option how to play with the calculator to as a proxy, to use a proxy for that reduced embedded energy.
And then for the U value calculation, the wall orientation, does it make any difference in the final averaged U value? I'm not sure I totally understand this, but that's one of the questions.
The orientation doesn't make a difference. There will be a difference in energy use, but the U value is not going to be, if I understood the question, it's not going to be affected, yeah, as per orientation, as long as the whole facade is informed.
Okay, and there's another question. I can take this one actually. So the EDGE experts list on the website. So as you may have all seen, there has been a new soft launch of our website. So some of the things are still being updated. If your name is not on the EDGE experts list or you find anything is missing, please just give us an email at the email address that Irene showed before. So that's edge@ifc.org. Also, please note that some of the project studies, we are slowly going to be populating those. So there may be some historical project studies that are not immediately visible, but they will be there. So then there's another question here. For a building with a basement floor, which is in the car park area, is the bottom floor slab the basement floor slab?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. And then regarding waffle or trough concrete slab thickness, the question is, do I not need to include the troughs in the app? So what I guess they're asking about where is the thickness taken from that slab?
I'm not very familiar with that particular material. Do you know, Omid?
Yes, I can answer. So the part of the slab that is, and when you look at a slab that has T-shape conditions where you have a thicker part of slab that tries to keep the structure, and then there's a slimmer part of the slab that is the filler or keeping the load, keeping the flow. You need to include the lowest thickness because the part that has structural element or T-shape, they are considered as structural elements. So in those types, don't include the height, the thicker beam. Just look at the slab parts.
Okay, and there's another question on how do you address the U value when reusing in existing materials? For example, 50% of the rooftop is reused and the other 50% is new. So how do you manage that in both the materials category and then for the combined U value?
Oh, sure. Both U values need to be reported in the wall U value. So you can add 2 or 3 different wall types. So you have to add the existing wall. If you don't really know, try to use the best, like you can at least understand if it's maybe a concrete block or if there is some insulation. So, but it has to be informed in the U value, both the new and the old one. And in the materials tab as well, if the building is more than 5 years old, you can claim existing reuse of existing materials, and you are able to put 2 different materials on the wall. So you will put, let's say, 50% reuse of existing materials and 50% you inform the new wall, and will be the same with exterior wall insulation.
There is another question as well about ceiling fans, and in version 2, they saw a lot more impact from the ceiling fans when they substituted that for air conditioning. But in version 3, they see a big difference in the savings. What is the difference between the 2 calculations?
I'm not sure what was the assumption for version 2, if you know, Amit. But in version 3, not all the projects are going to be benefiting from roof or ceiling fans. We'll remember that version 3, or if you are new, version 3 uses more accurate climate information, meaning that now we take the average of the the highest temperature and the lowest temperature. In version 2, it was the average of the whole month. So that will make a difference in how your project benefits from natural ventilation or ceiling fans. So the idea is version 3 is trying to be more accurate on those elements, and with the weather information being more accurate, then the results may change.
Okay, and then for exterior lighting areas, what if you have common areas on the rooftop or lighting on the facades? How is that included in the exterior lighting calculation?
So for exterior lighting is area. We don't ask you to put the area of the facade, but if the roof has lighting, you should include that area. And let's say, actually, sorry, I think I was wrong. You don't put the area of the facade, but if you have exterior light bulbs, let's say you have one balcony with one light bulb, you can include as it's gonna be lighting. Well, Omid, please let me know if I'm wrong. So if there is exterior lighting on the facade, I think we assume 1 square meter per light bulb. Is this correct, Omid?
Sorry, I don't follow. 1 square meter per light bulb? Are you talking about the lighting power density?
No, for the exterior area of lighting, let's say there is lighting on the facade. So
I see. Yeah, I responded in the chat to that question.
Okay.
So then the basic facade lighting is already included in version 3. If you have, very special lighting that you want to include, then you can convert that to exterior lighting area. So what you can do is to calculate what is your facade lighting energy and then convert it to exterior facade exterior lighting. But I would ignore, if it's not like a major lighting, I would ignore the facade lighting. I wouldn't include it if the lighting is not anything really extreme. The same standard applies. For example, if for exterior lighting you assume certain LED with a certain lumen per watt, then the facade light should follow the same standard. If you are not claiming lighting efficiency, then you don't need to report the efficiency of the facade lighting or exterior lighting.
Okay, so I know we're coming near the end of the session. Would you like to take a couple more questions, Omid and Irene, or should we wrap it up and show them where they can send their questions?
I think we need to wrap up.
Okay.
I'm really happy to hear so much interest. If you like these type of sessions, we can continue to have these type of sessions together. And for us, our community of edge experts are really, really important. We value your inputs, we value, and we are here to support you. Don't feel that you're alone or you're not being backed. We are here through our emails. But if you like this type of live sessions, we can continue to have these type of live sessions to, listen to the questions and answer your questions. Thank you so much, and please send us the email if you have any questions through email, and we'll answer, and we'll promise to have other sessions coming up. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yes, and again, the email address is edge@ifc.org, and please send us all of your questions. And we apologize if your question was not answered today. There were just so many questions to address in the time period, and we appreciate your attendance and look forward to hearing from you on any other questions that you have. And there's an overwhelming response that everyone's very happy with the session, so we will definitely schedule one again. So thank you again for attending today, and we're looking forward to seeing those additional questions. We also recorded the session today, so we will be sending that out to the attendees within a couple days.
And also, Michelle, please mention the survey.
Yes, so the survey was sent out, that Irene, that went out with the Zoom invitation, correct?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so we will be, just to double check, we will be sending the survey as well again to everyone who attended the session today. And if you could please fill that out, that will give you access to the recording. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, and have a good afternoon, morning, or evening.
Thank you.